All right, it's Wednesday, so time to talk about comic books. And didn't read a whole lot of comics. Caught up on this little thing and haven't finished it yet. So we'll not. I'm not going to be talking about the entire tome. Perhaps in a future date when I've completed it. I read a few pages here and there in between stuff, and that's what I do. But and I actually have quite a few of the individual issues of this collection, this being the epic collection of The Avengers Under Siege. See, there's the title. And this was a fantastic era for the Avengers, and it was the main era that I read when I was a young lad. And not for the least of which is the amazing, absolutely magnificent artwork of John Buscema, which is detailed throughout. He's not the main artist through the entire run here. There were some annuals and crossovers and that kind of thing through this collection. But nevertheless, there's a lot of John Buscema art, and it's just amazing. Even though he wasn't really a big superhero fan. His favorite was Conan the Barbarian and that sort of thing. But he was a professional. It was a job, and he put his best pencil forward on this. And of course, had help with inkers, and sometimes it was breakdowns, and some guy, finishers would work. But that's how you figure that out. These days, where you got nowhere near the excellence of his ability, and some of them can't even maintain a schedule for a monthly comic. And yet he was able to knock this out. And again, granted that there was help, but that's how you get it done, Of course, extra help costs money. Yeah, that's probably some of the problem there. But anyway, just the professionalism and whatnot in somebody showing up and doing the good work. And it's spectacular. It really is. So, yeah, this was the 80s and whatnot. And quite a few of these issues I read. It begins kind of with the aftermath of Secret Wars 2 and all that. And perhaps, again, when I do a full review of the whole thing, I will touch on that. And probably in conjunction with, I'll do a whole thing on Secret Wars itself. But here, remember Kang? That poor bastard. Upstaged by Dr. Doom, who has yet to even appear in the MCU and all that. But there was supposed to be a movie called Kang Dynasty, and some of the themes in here, the title itself is taken from one of the stories in the Avengers, and that would have probably given you an idea at least of what the plot would be and what it would be about. And this run is pretty much what you've got. So Kang was a recurring villain for the Avengers, even though he was originally introduced in the Fantastic Four as Rama Tut and a time travel adventure, which also featured Doctor Strange, but nobody knew he was there. Yeah, they retconned that later. And I actually have that issue. So I'll probably revisit that too. It's in bad shape, but nevertheless, I'll put it on the table and look at it. But that was an interesting thing where it repurposed an old Fantastic Four story. I guess this would have been the early 80s, whatever, and Doctor Strange. And it was this interesting story, but it revealed a lot of things of why certain things happened in that Fantastic Four story. And, it was Doctor Strange poking around and stuff. So, see, it's all connected. So anyway, basically, you've got a good bit of what you saw in the Loki series and stuff like that. And not so much Ant-Man, but the idea that there's multiple Kangs because of time travel, and there's constant divergent timelines. And so that's what this story introduced. And you start right off, this is actually an alternate Earth where Storm had become an Avenger and all this stuff. It's a plot by Kang, and oh no, nuclear destruction and everything. He thinks he's victorious, and then suddenly he gets teleported, and he's like, what the hell? What's this all about? And oh no, he's brought before the Council of Kangs. So you saw a Council of Kangs at the end of Ant-Man. which it was just this massive stadium of Kangs. But in reality, it's only 3 guys. They're all Kang, but they're the main ones passing judgment over their alternate selves that they're saying you're incompetent morons and all your plans go to crap. All he did was start a nuclear war. It destroyed the world. So what was the point of conquering that? Anyway, right off the bat, there's more than what it seems. And I kind of wondered that this is what the ultimate thing would be. And culminating for the Kang dynasty is that the Kangs are actually working against each other. And that was hinted at in the Loki series by He Who Remains, who he who remains is the guy who won the original Kang War. All the other Kangs no longer exist, and he managed to solidify the timeline in the sacred timeline and all that. And then, of course, the 2 Lokis, or rather the female Loki, kills him, and so it starts over again. And so there's all these Kangs, and that was the impetus for their big moment that would culminate with Secret Wars and everything. But it didn't happen because a funny thing happened on the way to the time warp, So, the Avengers, and the Under Siege part is that the government's investigating them, and that's how their ongoing storyline. But, oh no, they're gonna get wrapped up in this revenge plot of Kang, who's actually at revenge against himself. But here, these Avengers are abducted into limbo. And so this is what limbo actually looks like, not what it looked like in Deadpool or the Loki series. It's supposed to be this sort of, it's almost like the afterlife. It's all very foggy and stuff like that. One of the elements of it, you can go a few steps in another direction if you're separated from your group, and then you try to backtrack to find them again. It could take you years to find them. And then you do, and he's like, oh my God, I finally found you. It's been years. And like, what are you talking about? You've only been gone for 5 minutes. That sort of thing happens there. So it's literally outside of time and space, except there's a lot of space here, But the thing of here is that they connect it briefly to an old Avengers adventure from the 60s. And you see old Avengers here unconscious who kept being abducted and left here by a villain who was able to access limbo, but he didn't really control it or anything. And the Wasp is the only one who understands what's going on. She sees this. And even though that happened a long time ago, it's happening right in front of them because, again, time doesn't operate the same. So there's the little scene showing what happened. There was this villain called the Space Phantom or something. Hey, look, it was the early 60s, and all that. But, Kang's the real villain, he shows up. And, it's just a robot, but the real Kang is in this fortress manipulating everything. So, ultimately, the other Avengers, they go looking for their guys they lost. They end up there as well, and so on and so forth. But, gee, what's this all about? Meanwhile, there's protests and stuff outside Avengers Mansion. That's another story they got going on. Here's some creatures from the ROM, the Space Knight story, which I guess Marvel no longer has the license to. That was a toy, and they did a comic book series about him, and his main enemies were the Dire Wraiths, but he banished them to limbo. Well, they're being manipulated by Kang to come deal with him. Meanwhile, he's hanging out with his wife or girlfriend here, and she is pretty quintessential to the plot. It seemed they were introducing her in the Loki series. I believe that was her, race swapped, of course, but nevertheless, but I guess, I think that was her, but nothing will come of it now because, again, funny things happen on the way to the time warp. So they had the big battle here, fight. Of course, you got to have your action. That's the whole point of superheroes. And boy, Kang thinks he's got them all, but then finally, oh no, here's Kang fighting Immortus, who, at the time I figured He Who Remains is Immortus, which that's who that should be. But ultimately, Immortus is the elder Kang. This is who all the Kangs become eventually. But it turns out he's the one who's manipulated this because, hey, we got to clean up these alternate timelines. That's enough, It'd be like the Valyard in Doctor Who saying, enough of all these idiot doctors. See, here we go. There's the title, The Kang Dynasty. So the fortress in Limbo is actually the fortress of Immortus, and the Kang, who thinks he's the one behind it all, well, he catches everybody up on his story. There he is, as Rama Tut, as he originally was. He was bored with the perfect future, so he travels through the past, takes over Egypt, and this fits in with Jack Kirby's, Chariots of the Gods thinking and stuff he does, like with the Eternals and whatnot, and the idea that, hey, maybe aliens did help with the pyramids and stuff like that, but instead of an alien, it's a guy from the future, So there's the Fantastic Four. They take him on, and he escapes, but then he encounters Doctor Doom floating around in space. He's impressed with him, and then Doctor Doom inspires him to develop his Kang persona. There he is, putting his helmet on. Hey, turns out he's bald. Who knew? And so he's Kang, but I think he's been multiple characters over time, and they keep revisiting this. What was he? I think he was the Red Centurion or something like that in some story. And then ultimately, a teenaged version of him was Iron Lad. so yeah, but thing about alternate timelines, he's a time traveler. So each time he does it, it's gonna happen. So this idea of killing all these other versions, wasting your time, But I don't know. He's the master of time, so what do I know? So anyway, then he retells the deal about his girlfriend. She took a zap beam to save him, and she died, and he was broken and all this stuff. And so now he's got a chance to get her back. He ends up in Limbo after a battle with Thor, and he comes to this mysterious fortress, and lo and behold, there's Immortus, but he's not so Immortus, is he? He's dead. But he doesn't realize who Immortus is. And he's dead. I guess he won't mind me checking out his pad. So he looks around and he's like, wow, this place is cool. And he's amazed at how easily it is for him to operate it. Well, it's easy because turns out he made the place. He just doesn't know he did. Well, he hasn't done it yet. So it's that sort of thing. And he's able to reach out through time and save his girlfriend. And they're reunited, and he realizes what he can do. He can put right what once went wrong. So what happened is he sees, by doing this, he altered a timeline. And in that timeline, yes, he saved Ravana, but now he's dead. But it's an alternate timeline, so he's fine. Besides, he's beyond time and space. So things are just getting worse and worse. So he decides, I got to fix all these bad timelines. And by bad timeline, just a timeline I don't particularly like. So, that's what he does. But eventually, he's got all the Avengers in these paralysis beings, plus his alternate self that he's going to get rid of. And Hercules is, because he's an Olympian god, so he's slowly able to build up a resistance to it. So it overpowers the paralysis device, and they're ultimately able to break free. And look, it's Captain Marvel, the original first female Captain Marvel. Yes, there she is. Damn near forgotten by the, progressive, brilliant minds at MCU. Now apparently all fired. Yeah. I wonder what happened. Anyway, the fight continues. Ravana turns on him. No more killing. I can't take it. And all this sort of stuff. And the Avengers got to fight Kang's robots. And Kang's like, I can still win this. And finally, he's able to get rid of the other Kang. And then suddenly, the real mastermind, Immortus, shows up. Because Kang in the cape, so you know who he is, still doesn't know who this guy is. And it's starting to dawn on him. And he's like, yeah, I'm more mature and stuff. I'm not the dumb punk I used to be. Oh my God, your past self can be such an embarrassment. Why was I so stupid? Why did I grow my hair like that? Oh, gee. Oh, wait, he's bald. Anyway, so ultimately, this sphere and stupid Kang thinks this is a source of great power and knowledge, which it is, but he thinks he can contain it all, but he can't. It's all the knowledge that Immortus has, and it drives him insane. and off he goes into limbo, which means he's not dead, so he's still out there. And I think begs the question, and I assume perhaps at some point someone followed this up. I don't know. But Immortus lets him go because perhaps he knows, yeah, that's stuff I had to go through to get here. You know, it was tough, but yeah, I'm not going to mess with that. So are they one and the same, or are they just alternates again? You know, well, you don't know. Meanwhile, the Avengers are like, hey, what the hell was this all about? None of your business. It doesn't matter. Be gone with you. Because he's like, I'm not King the Conqueror anymore. I don't care about that. I got my babe back. I'm good. And I got my little pad here away from it all. Really away from it all. And you guys are stinking up the place. Get out. And so in the next issue, they're really upset about how he treated them. But in the end, it's for the best. So there you go. That was my introduction to the Kang story. You know, it was fascinating, and the whole idea, no one's really been able to fully capture the alternate timeline thing, because once you start it, this business of you can just collapse it and close it, it just creates yet another one where it didn't happen. You know, it's a never ending thing. So it's kind of like, well, that's happening, and just go about your business. That's about all you can do. But I guess Immortus found a way, at least for now. But of course, Kang's a recurring character, so they weren't going to get rid of him that easily. But in a lot of ways, until you get to Immortus, he, even with the guy who was manipulating all the other Kangs and making them look like, you know, idiots, which was his motivation. And, you know, Ravana's like, well, why are you doing this? Because they're idiots. They're an embarrassment. It diminishes the character, but what are you going to do? That's that. Whereas Immortus, you know, he's the one who's grown up, and his silly foolishness of his youth is like, ah, boy, yeah, it's embarrassing, but come on, we were all young once. Come on. Yeah, you know, all right, the end. So there you go. Avengers Under Siege. And, that's Kang Dynasty. So, obviously, the elements of alternate Kangs was the plot threads that they took to base their Kang plot for MCU, Phase 5, I guess it is. All gone now. Of course, they could have just recasted the character and still have Doom come in and just, you know, pull the rug out from under him and that sort of thing. But what have you, that's the way it went. And it still begs the question of how they're going to, because there's no setup for Dr. Doom. That rumor about him appearing in Black Panther, that probably should have happened just to have that there is a Dr. Doom somewhere around there. Even if he is from an alternate timeline, which is what they're going to do with the Fantastic Four and all that. And slowly but surely, oh, good Lord, this is the real bad villain, even though it would be pretty obvious once he appears. Talk about suck all the oxygen out of the room. Even for the most, you know, layman's approach to these comic books, most people kind of know the name. I mean, I don't know if he's on par with the Joker or Lex Luthor, but he's pretty high up there. So anyway, what have you? We'll see how that pans out. And if people show up and buy the tickets, it doesn't really matter, you know, because Deadpool 3, it's fun. That's the highest point of it. Is it a great film? Not really, you know, but it kind of fits with it because Deadpool was always, you know, stupid silliness. So it doesn't really matter. But there are lessons to learn there. But anyway, it won't be Kang. So if it is, it'll be a recast. They'll use the mask or something of that nature, or it'll just be a throwaway line of dialogue of Dr. Doom saying, hey, I got rid of that stupid Kang idiot. He didn't know how to use this stuff, but I do. And that'll be that. And then, of course, Loki will play a role, undoubtedly. So there you go. The sad saga of Kang, who turns out does not remember.